I'm making a guitar based on an Ernie Ball Silhouette because it's one of my favourite guitars that I've ever done a setup on and played. It was an incredible instrument, and I've always had an inkling that I wanted to make one, or one that's similar, because we don't just do a direct copy because that's naughty, but you know, so the principles are the same. But I've not built a guitar yet that's got a Floyd on it, so I thought it would be a good opportunity to do my own version of a Super Strat type guitar that looks a bit like an Ernie Ball Silhouette, you know, that you can have some fun with. So this is the Floyd Rose in question. It's in a nickel finish, and this I got from Northwest Guitars in the UK for the grand total of £44 UK sterling, which seems really cheap for a Floyd Rose, since the original units are between £200 and £300. A Goto 1996, which, you know, are widely thought to be actually the best version of a Floyd Rose type tremolo anyway. You know, you're looking at about £150, but I don't have that kind of money to splash out on a bridge, so I thought I'll give one of these a go, because I've used Northwest for several years and they've always been really good, especially the tuners, really good quality. So this came, and it's a really well made, solid piece of kit. Everything feels nice quality, the finish is good, you know, there's no slop in the trem arm at all. The only thing I don't like about it is the block in the back, because that looks like a piece of cast, which, you know, for 40 notes you can't really complain about. But it just happens that I've got a spare Goto brass block, because I changed the block on the guitar I've got in the house that's got a 1996 system fitted. So it should fit, but I'd rather have that on, because I know that that's a solid piece of brass and it'll be better than that. So I thought it would be fun to dismantle the Floyd, because a lot of people think these are somewhere to the left of witchcraft. So, but that's usually because they just don't understand what it is and how it works. So I need to strip it down so I can get this block off. So I just thought it'd be interesting for people to see basically how these are put together, because they're not that complicated, or, you know, they're not as complicated as you think. So trem arm fits on there on the mounting stud using that threaded collar, and underneath is where that is fixed in place, and you need a 3mm Allen key. You do get a couple of Allen keys that come with a Floyd Rose set usually, but I prefer using you know, mine that fit into a screwdriver because it's easier. So undo that, out she pops. That's a collar sleeve to keep it nice and snug, and then there it is. That's what the trem arm goes in. Now some of them use a screw-in mount where the actual tremolo arm screws into, you know, a barrel inside there, but it's all pretty much the same kind of principle. So now we've got to get to the screws that are holding that block on the plate. So to do that, we need to get the saddles out of the way. Now, again, 3mm. These screws are for the locking blocks inside the saddles. So you see, you've got these tiny little blocks inside the saddle there. Those are clamps basically for the string. So we'll quickly undo these. So we can get them out of the way. Now, when you loosen these screws, it's very important that you do not turn the unit upside down, because those blocks will fall out, and they're only small light pieces of metal, and they'll bounce and they will disappear. So just be careful that you don't. And that comes out the back like that. So now we need, it is, good guess, right. So now I'm swapping to a 2.5mm Allen key to undo that front locking nut, which is how you adjust the intonation on one of these things. So undo that, don't lose the screw, and then the saddle comes away from the plate like so. Now what I'm going to do is, as I take these off, I'm just going to snug those screws in so we don't lose the saddle block. So bear with. Now, the principles of these will be the same whether you've got the 6-string, 7-string, 8-string versions. They're all going to work in the same way. So there's not going to be any difference between them. It just, obviously the 7 and 8 string are going to be a little bit bigger and wider. That's it. Oh, sorry about that. My neighbour's doing some kind of restoration job on a van. So he's been doing that all day. But fair play to him. Right, so that's the saddles off, screws are off. Okay. So that's exposed the mounting screws for that block to us. And you can see, yeah, again, good quality on the finish. Some marks there from where the saddles are, but that's going to happen anyway. So now we need a really big screwdriver. Just so happens we have one here. Now, I've not seen a Floyd system yet that doesn't have 3 screws that hold the blocks on. There may be different ones out there, but I haven't seen them. So when you undo the screws, obviously the block comes away and you've got a shim under there. So that's the block. There's your shim. And that's the spring plate. Now it's that these micro adjusters push down on the back of the saddle that lets the, you know, for really fine tuning the string. So we're just lining everything up. So that's the little shim that goes between the spring plate and the block. So line that up, and then the shim, and then okay. So that's the brass plate in, brass block in, even on the bottom of the plate. Now, I've made sure that the screws aren't proud of those countersinks so they don't interfere with the, or they won't interfere with the saddles rather. So now we can get the saddles back on. So again, being careful, don't turn the saddle over or you'll lose the block. So these screws go back in. Let's just get these out of the way. So the spring is there, so you just push the screw through the spring, so it's like that, and then right, so that's now back snug, so it's okay to flip it up. Now, each saddle has got 2 adjustment screws. These are for intonation, so you can move the saddle forwards or backwards accordingly, depending on whether you need to adjust it or not. Now, the screws have got tiny little washers on them, so make sure you don't lose those. There it is. Okay, so to adjust the intonation, you loosen the saddle and then you move back and forth as you need to. He says. So yeah, it does that basically. So you can get the intonation point set exactly where you need it. Your guitar tunes properly, stays in tune properly, plays in tune. Okay, so that's the saddles all fitted back together. So then for the mounting, the trem arm mounting barrel, that goes through the top. The collar sleeve goes over that, and then the locking screw goes back in the bottom. So that's everything back as it was, with the exception that I've now got a solid brass plate on, solid brass block on. Yeah, even, instead of this piece of cast, which the difference in weight is night and day. So the way a Floyd works is a double locking system. So it locks the strings in the saddles at the bridge, and it also locks them at the nut. So then, as long as you get all of the slack out of the strings when you put a new set of strings on, and I mean all the slack. So you have to get every ounce of slack out of the strings, so that when you lock them down and then you use the trem, you're only moving the strings between the two lock points, and there's no spare tension in them left, so they go back to the original pitch, which is the whole point of the system. Now, the fine tuners are really clever, because they allow you to adjust the tuning on each string by a really small amount, by either tightening or loosening of the thumb screw. Now, when you adjust the screw, the spring underneath allows the saddle to come, you know, further away or closer to the nut. So technically it's lengthening or shortening the string, so therefore it's increasing or decreasing the pitch of the string. So as you tighten the screw, you can see it move down, and then that pulls the saddle back. If you go the other way, it moves it forwards. Now, these are meant to be micro adjustments, so if you've got a string that's, you know, quarter of a tone out of tune, you don't use the micro adjusters. That's where you go into the whole process of, you know, setting up a tremolo system so that you can balance the tuning, and then you use these to micro adjust and fine tune afterwards. I know a lot of, well, I've known a lot of people that think you can use these things to put a Floyd into drop D or whatever, and then get annoyed when taking a lot of the tension out of the bottom string adjusts all the tune on all the other strings. But it's simply because you're unbalancing the trem system, and the whole point of the trem system is you balance the string tension against the springs, which are in the back of the guitar in the cavity. So you've got a pivot point and a fulcrum, and it's that keeps it in tune. So yeah, those are only for really, really minute string tuning adjustments. That's it. So yeah, so that's how to strip down and put back together a Floyd Rose. So hope you found it useful, hope you enjoyed it. Again, hope you enjoyed the sound of my neighbour renovating his van. So yeah, they're not as complicated as you think, these things. Honestly, it's just a bridge system. It's just got, yeah, a bit more to it than a standard Fender trem bridge, but the principle on them is exactly the same. You've just got more adjustment on the individual saddles than you have on, you know, something else. So that's all there is to it. Quite simple. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Goodbye.